97% of UV radiation from the sun is blocked out by Earth's atmosphere.
Okay. Basically what we did in our setup, we used mice, and we set up, I think there were 30 groups. They were exposed to, the groups had 100 mice in each group, and each group was exposed to the UV light for different exposure times. So they were exposed for 24 hours, 12 hours, 6 hours, 3 hours, and then just no exposure whatsoever. And then the reason that we had 6 groups for each of those exposure times was in order to test them the way we wanted to every 15 days, you have to kill them in order to test them. I guess that's what Mrs. Whitman said. So we created different groups for 15 days, one for 30 days, one for 45, and so on. So there was a total of about 3,000 mice in the experiment, and then every 15 days we tested for the presence of tumors and then the average rate of mitotic growth for the mice that did actually have the tumor cells.
Okay, explain that mitotic growth rate to them, please.
It's just the growth rate of the cells that are in the tumor, like just how fast they're increasing in size.
Okay.
So since we have 2 data tables, one for the growth rate and one for the presence of tumors, this is the presence of tumor one, and it shows that after just the more hours per day that the mice were exposed, and the longer they were exposed for, the higher the presence of tumors. So it's a pretty simple slide. Then the mitotic growth rate. This also shows that once you're exposed, if you keep exposing yourself, it's like the rate's going to increase. The tumors are going to grow faster. So that's what that shows. And then for the conclusion, we have concluded that UV light does cause cancer and is therefore a carcinogen. And cancerous tumors grow slightly faster if you continually expose yourself to UV light. And yeah. And of course, if you expose yourself to the UV light, you have a higher risk of developing cancer.
So we had a couple follow-up things we wanted to do. The first one, we were wondering if spreading out the exposure was better, and we think it is just because the 6 hours, that's the same, those 4 added up is the same amount of hours as this group right here. And there's obviously less mice in this. So we think that there's spreading it out is probably less harmful, but we wanted to test that more. And then also we wanted to test if it was sort of inconclusive if going for more days, because this is 15 going down to 90, if going for more days would make it happen more often, and sort of the numbers stayed pretty much the same. And then we also wanted to test sunscreen and see how that affected the numbers.
So it's green on mice.
On mice, yeah. Yeah.
Questions for these guys? So let's go back and look at your, can we go back and look at your mitotic rate data again? So we're seeing that your average mitotic growth rate for 0 hours per day was 26. So that means that 26% of the cells in that sample would be undergoing mitosis. So that's your background level. So you guys came to some, oh, interesting that your 12 hours and 24 hours have the same rate. You guys came to the conclusion that having more exposure leads to faster cell division, which would be a faster growing tumor. Do you guys agree with that conclusion they drew?
Yes.
I don't see why it have to do with the data for division. I can see it messing up the cells. How does being exposed to something speed up mitosis?
Well, so what would that mean? Why would seeing a higher mitotic growth rate mean that you have what it means that basically if you have a faster mitotic growth rate, that means that more cells are dividing faster.
Right.
And if more cells are dividing faster, that means that they're not following the pattern they're supposed to be following, right? And so the pattern they're supposed to be following is about a quarter of them should be dividing at any one time according to that background level. And what they see is that 30% to 40% they have a difference of about 10% from 3 hours to 24 hours exposure. Do you guys feel like that's a big difference or no?
It also kind of correlates, though, with the difference that we have between what Sam was talking about for the further experiments, how when it was spread out, there were a lot less mice with cancer than when it was continued.
Yeah, I think it's interesting data. Again, I made this data up. But I don't know if I were to look at these results, I would be asking myself, I would think, okay, let's look at that rate. It seems like more exposure leads to faster tumor formation. And so then you might look at that question in more depth, right? And even maybe amplify the experiment. So you could look at just that factor and maybe do something where you can vary the intensity of light that they're getting over different periods of time or something. Because it might be interesting to look at the same amount of time, same duration of exposure, but different amounts of light that's actually getting to them.
Can we start with mice that already had the cancer?
Nope, you would still look at ones that don't, but it might be interesting. And it might also make you go look at cell lines, because if you're looking at rates of mitosis, then it might make me go, okay, well, let's actually look at skin cells and find out what kind of rates they're having. Be interesting. Okay, well done.